Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Friends, Namaste. On behalf of Team Param Vedanta, I extend one and all a hearty welcome for today's 63rd session of DISHA. DISHA, a series aimed to lead us into an inward journey for discovery of inner strength and happiness. Today, our Param Vedanta teacher, Srimati Triveni Muralidhar, shall explain from the two texts, namely from Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, Purushottama Yoga, verses 12 to 20, covering topics Brahman as Jagat, Brahman as Purushottama, and glory of Purushottama Gnanam. A very interesting and an extremely important knowledge. From Tattvabodha, under subtopic, she will explain Jīva Īshvara Aikyam. This presentation is followed by a teaching quiz to be presented by Dr. Divakar Gautam. The teaching quiz is aimed to remind and emphasize the need to remember points of today's teaching topics. Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir shall introduce us to the day's topics and also give us a gist. Srimati Radha Ravi will commence today's session by chanting and explaining a stuti on Sri Mahavishnu from Sri Mahabhagavatam. Srimati Radha Ravi, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. With the grace of the Lord, today I am blessed to chant the poem from Prahaladopakyanam, which is enshrined in Srimad Bhagavatam, written by the Sahajakavi Potanamatya. The poem projects the mind and intentions of Prahalada, which has reached the pinnacle of bhakti. The poet Potana, with great bhakti, explains the real purpose of the deha of a human being. The poet elucidates that the real glory for a jiva is to focus the thoughts and energize towards the prizing, serving, and chanting on the Paramatma or the God. The beautiful poem goes like this. Kamalakshunarchinchu Karamulu Karamulu Srinatu Varninchu Jihva Jihva Suraraksha Kunichupu Chudkulu Chudkulu Sheshashai Kimrukku Shiramu Shiramu Vishnuna Karninchu Vinulu Vinulu Madhuvairi Dhavalina Manamu Manamu Bhagavantu Valagunu Padamulu Padamulu Purushottamuni Miri Buddhi Buddhi Deva Devuni Jintinchu Dinamu Dinamu Chakrahastuni Prakatinchu Chaduvu Chaduvu Kumbini Davu Cheppedi Gurudu Gurudu Tandri Haricherumani Adige Tandri Tandri. In this poem, Sri Mahavishnu is referred as the Brahman. The dwelling in his chanting and reaching him is the ultimate goal of every human being. Prahalada, with serene devotion, tells his father that the real hands are the ones which offer the flowers and worship the Kamalaksha, whose eyes shine like lotus. The real tongue is the one which constantly keeps singing the enchanted chants on Lakshmipati. The real sight is which is blessed to see the protector of the gods. The real head is the one which is bestowed with the boon of bowing down to the god who rests on the Sheshanaga. The true ears are the ones which constantly dwells in the hearing about Sri Mahavishnu. The right mind, the Manaso, is the one which is always desirous about the one who killed Madhu, the demons. The real words are the ones which constantly revolve around the name and fame of Sri Mahavishnu. The virtuous thinking faculty, the buddhi, is the one which constantly concentrates all the thoughts upon the God. The real day is which there is complete reverence and contemplation about the one who is the God of all the gods. The real study is the one which rips apart the veil and reveals the reality. The one whoever preaches about the supreme being, the king and the lord of the land, all the time, he is the real guru. The real father is the one who tells his son to reach or attain the divinity. Vishnupadam, says Prahalada to his father Hiranyakashipu. Krishnarpanamastu. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Radha Ravi, for this very nice devotional song. And let us try to be in our own ways Parama Bhakta, as said in this poem. Sada Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We have been studying the Bhagavad Gita again and again and again. And each time as we come to the 15th chapter, I tend to focus on this verse. Yomam eva asammudo janati purushottama. Sarva vid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Let us reflect on the word-to-word meaning, because for me, this verse is the culmination or the final message of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So Sri Krishna would have completed at the 15th chapter. And asammudaha, moda means fool, sammuda means completely fool. Asammuda means completely wise. That means an enlightened person, a spiritually enlightened person. Such a person, evam janati mam. Such a person knows me as Purushottama. Shri Krishna gives no ambiguity in these words. He very clearly says, a wise person, a spiritually wise person, knows me, knows Shri Krishna as Purushottama. And such a person is Sarvavid. He is a knower of all. And he, bhajanti mam, he worships me in a totally different way. And what is a totally different way? Sarva bhavena bharata. He worships me wholeheartedly. So the literal translation as per Swamiji is this. Krishna says such a jnani will worship him in totality. Shankaracharya gives another meaning to this. And it is this meaning that our teachers emphasize again and again. Although this is an implication, this is not directly from the verse. Shankaracharya says the worship will be with the knowledge that Purushottama is none other than the Atma Chaitanyam within all of us. That means if I'm able to discover that Sri Krishna divine principle, which is there in me, because of me I am conscious, because of me I'm able to listen, because of which I am alive, that lively principle, Sri Krishna refers to that as Purushottama. Let me take you back to the 7th chapter. This important verse in the 7th chapter, the 16th verse, and a very important phase of the 7th chapter, Sri Krishna says, Chatur Vida Bhajanti Mam Jana Sukritor Juna Arto Jignasu Artarti Jnani Cha Bharatarshaba. He said there are 4 types of people, 4 types of bhaktas. And what are the 4 types? Artaha. Very common. Whenever we are in distress, we immediately think of God, and that is one of the most common forms of bhaktas. Artarti. I have an important project to do. Oh Bhagwan, please help me through. Jignasu. Certainly, the more evolved of the three is the one, like most of us, who want to know about God. And that's why we are coming for these classes, so we can bring ourselves into jnana. But then Shri Krishna says, there is the fourth, that is the jnani. And that is what all of us are working to be. That means we want spiritual knowledge. Once you go through the Bhagavad Gita, once you go through the Upanishads, we have gone through the 13th chapter. In the 13th chapter, we have clearly seen who is this Kshetrajna. That means the one who is the experiencer of the field. In the 13th chapter, we had a clear distinction between the objects of my experience, which is the Kshetram, and I, the experiencer. And Shri Krishna says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. And Shri Krishna emphasized that knowledge where you know the distinction between the seer and the seen, and that the seen, the seer in each one of us is common to all, and it is same as the one in Shri Krishna. He says that knowledge is the knowledge. There is no greater knowledge than knowing that the knower in me is the Shri Krishna principle, which in the 14th chapter comes as Gunatita, and the knower in me I know is Atma or consciousness. And based on that, we can say the Purushottama that we need to know as if like a Jnani is I am Purushottama. Now this seems atrocious. How can I be Purushottama? Let us do a little exercise, and I have done this 100 times with all of you. Now, once we go through this exercise, look at your own photograph when you were very small, when you were a little boy or a little girl in your early school days. And if you look at that photograph, there is one thing very clear. There is something in me which is always changing. My body has changed, my mind has changed, my thoughts have changed. So much in me is changing. Even in the course of from the morning till now, I have undergone so much changes. Whatever undergoes change is finite, is anatma, is also a part of me, but we are now trained to see that as a medium through which I function, whereas there is something in me which has never undergone change. I am always that. What is that which never changes? And if you see, it comes as I am. There is a finite aspect and there is the infinite aspect. The infinite, limitless, anantatva aspect in me is that conscious existence principle that was there from my childhood, that is there when I sleep, that is there when I am dreaming, that is there when I am waking. There is something, the turiya in and through. And if I'm able to recognize, then I see something enlightening. All my problems are there in my mind. All my limitations are there in my mind. And I, the real me, am there from the very beginning. I will continue to be there. And this is the understanding that we need to focus on and log into. If I'm a mixture of the finite and the infinite, if I'm the mixture of the limited and the limitless, why should I now continue to identify with the limitations and have all the problems? Why not work on identification with the limitless and play the role of the limited? Now, I am both. I am both finite and infinite. The problem is there is no corridor or there is no link between the finite and the infinite. It is like oil and water. There are these two common components in me, which are both me, which are totally distinct. So the finite can never become the infinite. The mortal can never become the immortal. That means I need to see these two things as distinct and learn to reconcile to these two things. What are the things that I need to reconcile? As body-mind, there is no complete solution to any worldly problems. I need to accept them as my prarabdha, handle them as well as possible. Even with the greatest spiritual knowledge, my worldly situation will not change, but certainly my attitude to them will change, because once I see myself as the limitless Atma playing a limited role, it is like a person who's watching a movie with maybe a tragic scene, but then I go through the tragic scene, I experience the tragic scene, I may be able to dramatize the tragic scene, but I will not be able to suffer that. That is the only solution, and that is the solution. That is the greatness of Vedanta. So what is the teaching that we get through the Bhagavad Gita, through the Upanishads? That there is the Satyam in me, that is the Brahman aspect. The body-mind comes under Jagan Mithya. We heard in the 13th chapter, Kshetram. This body is Kshetram. And this body is what? Mithya. The only evolution amongst all of us are, if there is a gradation in evolution, is how convinced I am of this fact, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Now, if I give importance to anything anatma, that means my body, my family, my possessions, my profession, my name, fame, whatever, anything anatma, that something is going to be the cause of all my problems. And therefore, the Satya Nityatvam I have to work on. So what I need to strengthen is the Brahma Bhava through all my processes of meditation. Day in and day out, I need to have this conviction. I am a mixture. The Anatma in me is a wonderful medium for me to interact. Whatever I do, I'm not able to improve my body, mind beyond a certain extent. I have to accept this as my prarabdha and do what best I can. But when I am by myself in the green room of my life, I need to celebrate, I am Atma Brahma. And that is what we have studied. Now, this teaching will come in its own way in the Bhagavad Gita, which Triveni will explain to us. Triveni, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. From the 12th to the 15th verse, Krishna shows how the Jagat, the universe, also is an expression of the Lord, Brahman. The light in the sun, the moon, and the fire is the Lord only. In the form of the sunlight and moonlight, the Lord alone sustains all living beings. As the digestive fire, it is the Lord who digests the food. The Lord alone is behind all the mental faculties of knowledge, memory, etc. He is the author and the content of the Vedas, as well as the knower of the Vedas. Thus, Krishna reveals that Brahman alone is in the form of Jīva and Jagat. This is what comes under the heading of Brahman as Jagat. Yadadityagatam tejo jagat bhangsayate akhilam yat chandramasi yachagnav tat tejo vidhi mamakam. That light which is residing in the sun and which illumines the whole world, and that which is in the moon and in the fire, know that light to be mine. With the previous verse, the first topic where Krishna says that he alone is in the form of the Chaitanya Jiva is over. Brahman alone is present in everybody as the Chidabhasa, the Jivatma. Paramatma alone resides in everybody as the Jivatma. From 12th to 15th, we are entering the second topic. Brahman alone is in the form of the Jagat, the inert universe also. Brahmaiva Jagat Rupena api sarvatra sarvaihi anubhuyate. After defining Brahman in the 6th verse of this chapter, Lord Krishna establishes in the later verses that Brahman alone is in the form of everything. And this is called Sarvatmakatvam, and here Krishna talks as one with Brahman. He says, I alone am appearing as everything. I am everything. He's already talked about this in the 7th, 9th, 10th, and 11th chapters. In fact, the very Vishwarupa Darshanam is revealing this fact that Bhagavan is everything, and that is Sarvatmakatvam, is briefly dealt within these verses. And for this purpose, the whole universe is divided into two, Chaitanya Prapancha and Achaitanya Prapancha. And Krishna says that I alone appear in the form of Chaitanya Jiva. I alone appear in the form of the Achaitanam Jagat also. Why do we say that Bhagavan is everything? Bhagavan being the cause of everything, Bhagavan alone has to be everything. There's no creation different from Ishvara, and this is the uniqueness of the Vedic teaching, because that is why we worship the Lord in any form and every form. We worship animals, human beings, trees, rivers, the 5 elements as God. The reason is these do not exist separate from Bhagavan or Brahman. And therefore, Bhagavan is in the form of everything. And therefore, Krishna wants to take a few important things in the creation, and he points out that they are his own manifestation. What are the natural forces that Krishna talks about? He takes three of them. One is Surya Shakti, the solar energy, and the second one is the lunar power, the Chandra Shakti. Krishna uses the word Tejaha instead of Shakti. Therefore, Surya Tejaha, Chandra Tejaha, Tejaha is Shakti, energy, power, and the third one is Agni Tejaha, the power of the fire. So these are the three natural and very, very important forces of energy. Aditya Gatam Tejaha. Tejaha means the power and the energy, and even those people who feel that all other sources of energy will be exhausted, think that ultimately we have to tap the solar energy only. Akhilam Jagat Bhasayate, which illumines the entire universe. And during daytime, the entire earth or a portion of the earth is illumined free of cost. So he says, Akhilam Jagat Bhasayate. And the sun never gets fused out. The energy of the sun never ends. And Yat Chandramasi, you have to supply the word Tejaha according to Swamiji. And that energy which is obtained from the moon, the lunar energy, is borrowed from the sun only. The original sunlight is getting reflected in the moon. That reflected light itself is very powerful. And the third one, Yat Cha Agnav. Here also we have to supply the word Tejaha. Yat Tejaha Agnav. And that energy which is there stored in Agni. Agni means the fire principle, Agni Shakti. All these three powers belong to me. Tat Tejaha, that power. Mamakam Vidhi, may you know as my power. And that is why in the Vedic discipline, the day begins with the worship of the sun, and all the prayers are Surya prayers. So this sun alone sustains the living beings. If the sun is not there, the planetary motion itself is not there. The earth cannot survive. The very existence of the sun sustains the earth. And therefore, Mitra Datram Prithvi Datyam. Mitra means the sun. Sun alone sustains the earth. Therefore, morning begins with the Surya Namaskara, and almost all Paurnami days, full moon days, we've got some festival or the other. Every month, Paurnami is special because again, moonlight is worshipped. And then, of course, Agni worship is fundamental to Vedic religion. The Rig Veda begins, Agni Vide Purohitam. Why? Because Surya Shakti, Chandra Shakti, Agni Shakti, Mamakam Vidhi. Do not take them for granted. In the following verses, Krishna is going to talk about the glory of each Shakti. Verse 13, Gama Vishyacha Bhutani Dharayamyaham Mojasa Krishnami Chaushadihi Sarvaha Soma Bhutva Rasatmakaha. The first line talks about the contribution of the Surya Shakti, which is a blessing from the Lord. So Krishna says, Gama Vishya. Regularly, the solar energy blesses all the Jīva Rashis with Ojas or Prana Shakti. That is why we are asked to get up before sunrise, and we are supposed to expose ourselves to the morning sunlight or solar energy, which is called pranic energy. And that is why the pranic healers talk about drawing energy from the sun and handing over to our pranamaya kosha. The entire pranamaya kosha is sustained by the sun. And therefore, Krishna says, I sustain through the solar energy, Ojasam, by blessing the living beings with Ojas, means Prana Shakti, pranic energy, vital force. And this is supposed to be responsible for the health of the Annamaya Kosha. It is also responsible for the health of Manomaya Kosha. Then what is the contribution of the Soma Shakti, moon energy? He says, Rasamatka Somaha Bhutva. I myself become the moonlight or lunar energy, that is Rasatmakaha, which is full of the plant nutrient. And through that, what do? Oshadihi Sarvaha Pushnami. I nourish all the plants. So through Surya Shakti, I nourish the human beings. Through Chandra Shakti, I nourish the plant kingdom. That is why they say some of the farmers expose the seeds to the moonlight before sowing them, because it will draw energy from the moon. So Rasatmakaha Somaha Bhutva Aham Pushnami. Verse 14, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Pranam Dehamashritah Pranapana Samayuktaha Pachanyannam Chaturvidham. So in this verse, the Agni Shakti or Agni Tejas or power is talked about. In the Shastra, Agni Tattvam is divided into two types, Bahya Agni and Antara Agni, which is known by different names such as Jataragni, the fire within the stomach, and Vaishvanara Agni called the digestive fire, which cooks the eaten food the second time. So Krishna says, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva, I myself am in the form of Antara Agni Shakti. Praninam Dehamashritaha, I reside in the body of every prani, and residing there, what do? Chaturvidham annam pachami. I cook all forms of food and digest Chaturvidham annam, the four types of food which a human being consumes, Paksham, Bhojyam, Leham, and Choksham. And how is the digestive fire kindled? Krishna says that is also done by fanning, prana, apana. Breathing in and breathing out is the fanning of the digestive fire. When the breathing slows down, hunger slows down and breathing increases. Hunger increases. From that it is clear, breathing is the fanning of the digestive fire. Therefore, Krishna says that he, in the form of Vaishvanara Agni, digests the food, and that is the Agni Shakti. And therefore, hey Arjuna, appreciate me in the creation in the form of Surya Shakti, Chandra Shakti, and Agni Shakti. And therefore, I am everything. Verse 15, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanvishto, mattaha smritir gnanam apohanam cha, vedaista sarvairahameva vedyo, vedanta krit veda videva chaham. Sarvasya hridayaham sannivishtaha. Hey Arjuna, I, the Paramatma, reside in the heart of everyone. So everybody is like a temple. The heart represents the mind represents the sanctum or garbhagraham, dehaha devalayaha, and mind is the garbhagraham. And in that mind, I, the Paramatma, am present as the Jivatma, witnessing every thought occurring in the mind. Therefore, Hrudi Sakshi Chaitanya Rupena Kshetragta Rupena, in the form of the very consciousness, I am in every living being, and Mattaha, because of me, the consciousness alone, all the functions of the body are going on. Matta Smritir Gnanam Apohanam Cha, all the mental faculties are alive because of me. Sarvaihi Vedaihi Ahameva Vedyaha, I am the subject matter of all the scriptures, because scriptures are dealing with the Lord alone. The way the Purva Bhaga is dealing with Saguna Ishvara, Vedanta Bhaga deals with Nirguna Ishvara. And one commentator gives a special meaning for these words. According to him, Nanam Jagrataha Smritihi Swapna Apohanam Sushuptihi. Krishna says all these avasthas are because of him alone, and says that he is the Pramatma, Pramanam, Prameyam, the entire Triputi, and therefore I am everything. Lord Krishna completes the important topic of Brahmana Sarvatmakatvam. Brahmana Sarvatmakatvam means Brahman alone is in the form of everything. This is the essential teaching of all the Upanishads. In the Mundaka Upanishad, we have learned that everything is Brahman, with different names and forms, which cause only a superficial difference. So the world is superficially different, but in essence, the whole world is Brahman. There is nothing other than Brahman. And Krishna has mentioned this in the 4th chapter also. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi, Brahmagno Brahmana Krutam, Brahmaivati Gamtavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. Any means of offering is Brahman, the oblation is Brahman, the fire in which the offering is made is Brahman, and the one who offers is Brahman. Such a person who abides in Brahman indeed gains Brahman. It is not enough that we say Brahman is everything. There is the sadhana will be incomplete. I should finally say that Brahman, I am. Instead of saying Brahman is everything, we say I am everything. Aham annam, aham annadaha, aham shlokakrit, aham eva idagom sarvam. This is called Sarvatma Bhava. Now we move on to the topic of Brahman as Purushottama. In the next 3 verses, Bhagavan reveals Brahman in its true nature. Brahman in the form of the manifest universe is called Kshara Purusha. As the unmanifest universe, the same Brahman is called Akshara Purusha. Both these Purushas are relative. Beyond these 2 Purushas is the Uttama Purusha, the absolute. Because of its superiority, it is called Paramatma or Purushottama. It is the imperishable Brahman because of which everything exists. In the following 3 verses, 16, 17, and 18, Krishna gives the definition of the word Purushottama, and based on this word alone, the very chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. What is Purushottama? Who is Purushottama? Krishna tells in these 3 verses. Dvavinu Purushau Loke Ksharakshakshara Evacha Sharaha Sarvani Bhutani Kutastokshara Uchyate Uttamaha Purushastvanyaha Paramatmetyudahrutaha Yo Lokatrayamavishya Vibhattavyava Īshvaraha Yasmadaksharatīto Ahamakshāradapi Chottamaha Atosmi Loke Vedecha Pratitaha Purushottamaha. To reveal Purushottama, Lord Krishna divides the whole universe into 3 portions or 3 components. The first component perceptible to our sense organs is Kshara Purusha, because normally matter is indicated only by the word Prakriti Tattva, but this is an exceptional context in which the manifest matter is called Kshara Purusha. Then Krishna talks about the second component in unmanifest form, which is also inert in nature. He gives the technical name as Akshara Purusha. Then the third component of the entire cosmos is the consciousness principle, Chetana Tattvam, because according to our scriptures, consciousness is distinct from matter. Remember, consciousness is not a part, product, or property of matter. Material sciences think that consciousness is a product or phenomenon in matter. Vedanta strongly rejects that view, and Vedanta says consciousness is independent of matter, and this independent consciousness is the third component or part of this universe. And this consciousness principle Krishna names Uttama Purusha, Supreme Purusha. Now, when we make a comparative study of these 3 components, that is Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Uttama Purusha, we will see certain important differences among them. Of these 3, the first 2 components are Achetana Tattva, whereas the third one, being consciousness, is Chetana Tattva. The first 2 components are Sagunam in nature, whereas the consciousness, according to Vedanta, is Nirguna Tattva. Then the third difference, both manifest and unmanifest, is subject to modification, violent changes. Matter can never remain the same. It is constantly undergoing changes. Borrowing from a parallel idea in the 8th chapter, the first 2 are Savikaram, whereas consciousness is Nirvikaram. Then the 4th difference, the matter principle, is Savikalpam, divisible. Nirvikalpam is consciousness. And finally, and most importantly, Kshara Purusha and Akshara Purusha are Mithya, whereas Uttama Purusha, the consciousness principle alone, has independent existence, and therefore it is called Satyam and lends existence to Kshara and Akshara Purusha. And therefore, of these 3 components, Krishna says that the third component is the supreme one, because that is Sarva Adharam, Vishwadharam Gagana Sadrasham is Uttama Purusha. And having said this much, Krishna very intelligently says that Uttama Purusha, the consciousness, this Chaitanya Tattvam alone is my real nature, and therefore I would like to claim myself as Uttama Purusha, which is Chaitanya, Nirguna, Nirvikara, Nirvikalpa Tattva. And since I am the Uttama Purusha in the whole world, as I am known as Purushottama, by reversing these 2 words, I am Purushottama, the Nirguna Chaitanyam. This is the Saram, the essence. Krishna concludes the definition of the word Purushottama, and because of this reason alone, this chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. And now Krishna says the aim of every spiritual seeker is the knowledge of Purushottama. Purushottama Gnanam is the aim of every seeker. We move on to the glory of Purushottama Gnana. Concluding the teaching, Krishna glorifies this knowledge as the means of fulfillment. With an undiluted mind, the one who knows this most secret knowledge of Purushottama becomes the knower of all and a person of fulfillment. Verse 19. Yo mameva sammudho janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. So here the Lord says all the intelligent people of the world will go after Uttama Purusha, Purushottama, the Nirguna Brahma, whereas deluded people or materialistic people will be going after manifest matter or unmanifest matter, and they are asammudaha. Whereas a sammudaha, a viveki, a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna will go after Uttama Purusha, Purushottama, by following karma, upasana and dana yoga. Ultimately, what will they do? Purushaha tattvam janati. They will come to know Purushottama, the Nirguna, Nirvikara, Nirvikalpa, Chetana, Brahma tattvam janati. So intelligent people know the Purushottama. Those people, saha sarvavit bhavati. Knowing Brahman is knowing everything. Eka vijnanena sarva vijnanam. Therefore, sa sarvavid bhajati. Purushottama jnanena sarvavid bhavati. And thereafter he will continue to worship me. But his worship will be of a higher order. So Krishna says, sa sarva bhavena mam bhajati. Such a jnani will worship me in totality, wholeheartedly, fully. Shankaracharya says the worship will be in the form of knowledge that Purushottama is none other than I, the Atma Chaitanyam. That all-pervading consciousness Purushottama is I, the consciousness obtaining within my body-mind complex, and therefore Jnani worships in the form of Advaita Bhakti. So Sarva Bhavena means Advaita Bhavena, Abheda Bhavena. And in the 7th chapter, Krishna talked about 4 layers of bhakti. Artha Bhakti, Artharthi Bhakti, Jignasu Bhakti, and Jnani Bhakti. And there Krishna said, Jnani Bhakti is the highest Bhakti. That is Advaita Bhakti. So Saha Sarva Bhavena Mam Bhajati. And continuing, Krishna concludes, Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etat buddha buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. Idamuktam shastram guhyatamam. This teaching about Sarvatmakam Brahma and the teaching about Purushottama, both are one and same. This Brahma Vidya or Purushottama Vidya is guhyatamam, the greatest secret not available that easily. Therefore, if you want that knowledge, that is very, very rarely available, Arjuna, and I have told you that secret. So, idam maya uktam, and why I chose you for teaching. Firstly, you asked, that is important. And secondly, you deserved. You deserve the teaching also because you are anagha, pure-minded. Agha means papam. Anagha is papa rahitaha, shuddha purushaha. Since you are a pure one, I chose to give you this teaching. Etat buddha, may you receive this teaching and assimilate this teaching by practicing that uttama purusha. That is, I am uttama purusha. In fact, the word uttama purusha, and this is the teaching given in the 8th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad, that is the basis for the 15th chapter. So, etat buddha, may you receive and assimilate, and buddhiman syat, may you become buddhiman, means wise person. Krishna says there is a practical benefit and says this knowledge alone will give fulfillment in life. Krita krityaha bhavaha. Nothing else will give you fulfillment. Even if it gives fulfillment, it is a fake and temporary fulfillment. Sooner or later, you're again ready for the next thing. Therefore, the journey of fulfillment ends only when you get this wisdom. Therefore, Purushottama jnanena tripatihi bhavati. Atman eva atmana triptaha bhavati. Hey Bharata, hey Arjuna, this is the knowledge that I give you. So with this, Krishna completes this teaching, giving the phalam of this knowledge. We now move on to Tattva Bhuta, where we talk about the Jīva Īshvara Aikyam. The main theme of the Vedantic teaching, Jīva Atma Paramatma Aikyam, has been spoken about elaborately in the previous chapters. The idea conveyed is that Atma, the Chaitanyam, is only Ekam. Aikyam means oneness. Therefore, Atma, the Chaitanyam, is only one, and that one Chaitanyam alone is expressing through the matter principle. And when that Chaitanyam is functioning through individual matter called Shariratrayam, then the consciousness gets the name Jivatma. And when the very same consciousness is functioning behind total matter or Prapanchatrayam, then the very same Atma is called Paramatma. There is one more topic, which is the relationship between Atma and Anatma. Because we say there is only one Atma. We know the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma as being one and the same. Now we are asking, what is the relationship between Atma and Anatma, the spirit and matter? And Vedanta points out that their relationship is dependent and dependent relationship, supported relationship. This means that matter depends on consciousness. Even to prove its existence, matter depends on consciousness, whereas consciousness does not depend upon matter for its existence. Therefore, the scriptures point out that consciousness is Satyam and matter is Mithyam. Satyam means independent or Swatantraha, whereas matter is Mithyam or Paratantraha, opposite of Swatantra. Swatantra, Paratantra. The examples we generally give is that of clay and pot, wood and furniture, gold and ornaments, water and waves, oceans, tanks and lakes. Atma is Satyam and Anatma is Mithyam. And this one Atma appears as Jivatma at individual levels and Paramatma at the total level. Therefore, the Vedantic teaching can be presented in three statements. The whole Vedantic teaching can be presented as Paramatma is Satyam, Anatma is Mithyam, Jivatma is identical with Paramatma. This is the essence of the Vedanta. Now, what are the means and benefits of getting this knowledge? The means of acquiring knowledge called Gnana Yoga is presented in three stages. Shravanam means listening, Mananam means reflection, Nididhyasanam means contemplation. Shravanam is done with the help of the teacher. Mananam is done both independently and with the help of the teacher, whereas Nididhyasanam has to be done independently and alone. No teacher can help. One has to apply the knowledge during the Nididhyasanam phase. Krishna warns in the Gita that any amount of study is of no use unless it is assimilated through Mananam and Nididhyasanam. What is the fruit of this knowledge? Gnana Phalam, the benefit of this knowledge. The benefit is presented in two forms in the Shastra. One is the benefit while we are living, that is before death. The other one is the benefit after death. Jivan Mukti is liberation while living. This is the benefit while we are still living and is the virtue or phalam enjoyed at the mental level in various forms. The problems faced at the mental level include insecurity, fear, sense of inadequacy, jealousy, anger. All these are psychological problems called samsara. Jivan Mukti means that I continue to face the challenges in life. At the same time, I am free from these unhealthy responses. All unhealthy responses are emotional problems called samsara. The three benefits of Jivan Mukti are independence, Swatantriyam. The first and most important benefit is Swatantriyam. I am mentally, emotionally, or psychologically an independent person, and Gnana gives me independence from all. Whether it is a person, situation, or object, I don't seek company, nor do I feel lonely. The second is Purnatvam, fullness. The second benefit, sense of fulfillment in life. I know I am the Atma, which is Satchit Ananda Swarupaha, and therefore I am free from limitation. Samatvam, balance of the mind. This means the emotional strength to face ups and downs of life. Gnanam becomes a great shock absorber. By Gnanam, even the worst troubles may affect me, but never permanently. The word literally means freedom while living. So, Swatantriyam, Purnatvam, and Samatvam. Then we talk about Videha Mukti. To understand Videha Mukti, we have to know what happens to an ignorant person after death. Then only we can understand what happens to a Gnani after death. In the case of a Gnani, at the time of death, the physical body is dropped. That is why the physical body decays and merges into Panchabhutani or 5 elements. But even though the physical body perishes, the subtle and the causal body continue to survive. It acquires another body to continue the journey, and it may acquire the body here itself, or it may acquire the body elsewhere. Therefore, an Ajnani travels after death. In other words, his Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram travel and acquire another physical body, and this is called Punarjanma or rebirth. The Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram will again go through life and again die and again acquire another body. But death and birth is only at the level of the physical body. In the case of a Gnani, it is said in the scriptures that at the time of death, all the 3 bodies merge into the Samashti. The Shariratrayam, Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana will merge into Prapanchatrayam. That means Gnani does not survive as an individual, but he survives as the Samashti, the total. And he is one with Paramatma. Jivatma has become Paramatma, losing the individuality, just as the river loses its individuality when it merges into the ocean. And there is no question of Punarjanma. Therefore, Videha Mukti is freedom from Punarjanma, rebirth. And why does Gnanam give the benefit of Videha Mukti? The scriptures present this topic in a particular way. They say Gnanam stops Punarjanma by destroying all the karmas. Thank you. Harihi Om.
Thank you very much, Triveni, for summarizing this chapter and giving an understanding as given to us by Swamiji. Few things will be a conflict in the mind of a regular seeker. How is it that I, the limited being, can claim that I am Purushottama? Second is, even if I claim myself to be Purushottama, how is it possible to reverentially treat Sri Krishna as Bhagwan? Now, if you see Advaita Jnanis who declare that they are Purushottama, you will see they are also Parama Bhaktas. For them, Sri Krishna is a living God for them. Now, this seems to be seemingly contradictory. How is it possible that I can claim I am Bhagwan, at the same time I surrender to Bhagwan? This is possible. Sometimes people wonder, are these all fictitious? Is there a possibility of being something real? Gautama Buddha has said, if even one person can achieve, it is our potential. And we are fortunate to see our acharyas, our living gurus, who are living examples of people who are jnanis. And it is these people who will inspire to say that whatever they are seeing is gospel truth. And let us have that shraddha as we go along this journey. We will now have a teaching quiz which will be conducted to us by Dr. Divakar, and to see how we have understood this chapter. Dr. Divakar, please.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We'll just have a quick quiz and go through some of the important lessons that we have learned through this topic, and we will have a volunteer to answer these questions as well. The first question, which tree is used as a metaphor in the chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga? Is it Pippala tree, or is it a banyan tree, or is it a coconut tree?
The people tree, Pippala tree.
That is absolutely right. Ashwattha Vriksha. So that is what is used as a metaphor. So that later became Pippala tree or a people tree. Next question. The metaphor of the people tree is borrowed from which Upanishad? We know that Bhagavad Gita is an essence of all Upanishads. Sarva Upanishado Gavo Dugdha Gopala Nandana. So we know that a lot of verses have been taken from this particular Upanishad. So what Upanishad are we referring to? Where is this referred in the Upanishads?
The Kathopanishad.
Absolutely right. The dialogue between Yamadharmaraja and the Nachiketa. This comes in the 2.3.1. Almost similar kind of wordings have been used. The first was Urdhva Moolam Adashyakam. Similar wordings have been told in the Kathopanishad 2.3.1. Next question. Match the following. This is the Samsara Vriksha and then the Pipala tree. So a lot of similarities have been drawn. I think we have a question on that as well. So what does the leaves represent? And what about the birds?
Leaves represent the Vedas, the
Okay.
buds, the sense organs, and roots attachment.
Absolutely right. Okay. So here we see the answer. Leaves, Vedas. Yeah, that's right. So birds is the sense objects as well, and the roots are the attachment. Next question. What is the meaning of the word Purushottama? The very chapter name is Purushottama Yoga. What is the meaning? And that was beautifully explained today by Triveni ji.
It means uttama purusha or Brahman, Nirguna Brahman.
Absolutely right. So there is Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Uttama Purusha. Uttama Purusha is also Purushottama, who is the Nirguna Chaitanya, Satchidananda Atma, or the Brahman. Very good. Next question. What are the various features of the metaphoric tree? So the similarities between the Ashwatha Vriksha and the Samsara, the whole universe. Swami Paramarthananda ji has given several similarities. A few of them, if you can mention.
Yes, Mahatvam. Both
Yeah.
are huge and vast.
Yeah.
Adyanta Rahitam. We do not know the beginning and end of either. Like we do not know whether that's the seed first or tree first. Similarly, third, Anirvachaniyam. That means logically uncategorizable. We do not know what is cause effect, whether our samsara is fate, free will. We just say it is Maya. Moolatvam, the support of the tree is the invisible root. Similarly, Bhagwan Vishwa Adharam is invisible. Shakatvam are the various branches at different levels. Similarly, the universe has higher lokas, middle lokas, lower lokas. Parnatvam are the leaves, which are the functional unit of the plant compared to the karma khanda, which makes us perform various karmas and get involved in punarapi jananam. Phalatvam are the fruits. The trees bear all kinds of fruits, sweet, sour, and mixed. Similarly, samsara vriksha gives us sukha, dukkha, and various mixed type of situations. Ashrayatvam is the tree is the nesting site for birds. Similarly, the universe is a nestling site, be it Swarga Loka, Manushya Loka, or various lokas, people live there. Chalatvam is that the tree, however huge, can sway with winds. Similarly, our samsara tree can be swayed by prarabdha, especially prabala prarabdhas. And finally, chedatvam, even a huge tree can be uprooted. Similarly, the huge samsara tree can be uprooted by a special tool called vairagyam.
Perfect. I mean, it was as if the answers were given to you beforehand, but that's not the case. We know that. Dr. Anupama, you've been a student, Vedantic student for a long, long time. And I remember you have also presented this particular verse when you did your talk. Excellent. I don't think anything much to be.
I referred to my presentation.
And thanks to Swamiji for making it so very clear. So Shakavatvam, Phalavatvam, Chalanavatvam. So all these things are very well explained. We'll move to the next question. Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitva. Beautiful verse. And what is that we are talking about here? Dash, weapon of dash. What is the weapon which is being used?
Vairagyam
Yeah.
is a weapon to eradicate samsara.
Right. So weapon of what? Okay. And Dridena Chitva.
The deep-rooted samsara.
Okay. Look at the answer. Cut firmly. Dridena Chitva. Chitva means cutting. Firmly cutting using the weapon of Vairagya, the detachment. Beautiful. Next question. What are the methods of solving the problem of samsara? Samsara nivritti upaya, according to this chapter.
First, Vairagyam, that
Yeah.
is Gatvam. Then we have to do Vedanta Vichara, Parimargyam. Then we
Yeah.
have to surrender to the Lord, Sharanagatim.
Yeah,
Finally, the Sadgunas like Nirmana Moha.
absolutely. The
The
four
Sangha.
things.
Yeah.
So sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is covered in these four topics and given different names. So you've covered all of them. Next question. What are the Vedantic friendly virtues, the Sadgunas which are talked about here? In the previous studies, we have seen some of the Sadgunas are elaborated previously, both in 13, 14, and also next it will come in the 16th and 17th chapter as well. So what are those things which are elaborated in this particular chapter?
So first
Daily
one,
sampa.
Nirmana Moha. Nir is without, Abhimana and delusion. And Jita Sangha Dosha means without attachments. Adhyat Manithya means routinely being anchored in spiritual pursuits.
Yep.
Inivrittha Kamaha, without desires.
Yes.
Inda Vair Mukhaha, without getting involved in the dualities like Sukha Dukkha.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Jita Sangha Dosha, free from the emotional attachment. Dvandvai Vimuktaha, Samatvam, withstanding the pairs of opposite Shitoshna, Sukha Dukkha. So taking everything equally. Adhyatma Nityaha, you have already mentioned that. Swadhyaya, the regular study of the scriptures. Thank you. Next question. In this verse, the same verse, the term used to denote the wise person, what is the word which is used here to tell who is a gnani? Again,
Amudha.
correct. It is amudha. Amudha. Okay. Next question. So very popular verse. Na tad bhashyete suryo na shashanko na pavakaha. So this is the verse which occurs in what other Upanishads? Like we told earlier, many of these verses are taken from the Upanishads. Similar verses are there in which, what Upanishads?
In Katopanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, and Shveteshvara Upanishad.
Absolutely right. Mundaka Upanishad and Katopanishad. Okay. So that is the verse which is Natatra Suryo. Natatra Suryo Bhanti na Chandra Tarakam Nema Vidyutho Bhanti Kutoha Yamagnihi Tameva Bhantam Manubhati Sarvam Tasya Bhata Sarvamidam Vibhati. Okay. This verse gives what Lakshanam? What is that? Brahma Lakshanam. That is right. Absolutely right. Next question. Okay. Utkramantam. Another very popular verse. So who has the Gnana Chakshu? So people who have the eye of the discernment. We have heard the Divya Chakshu, Gnana Chakshu in the 11th chapter. So who has the Gnana Chakshu in the above verse?
The Jnani who can differentiate, who can see the Atma distinct from the Anatma in every individual.
Absolutely. Is it Vimuda?
No.
No, absolutely not. Vimuda doesn't see. Anybody who doesn't see this is a Vimuda.
Asammuda.
Correct. Amuda or Asammuda. Okay. Next question. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritah Pranapana Samayuktah Pachamyannam Chaturvidam. Popular verse chanted just before taking food. In fact, the whole chapter is chanted before taking food. What are the 4 types of annam which are described in this particular verse?
There is the bhakshyam which we chew, the bhojyam that we swallow like liquids, the lehyam that we lick like pickles, and the choshyam that we suck. Like
sugar cane. That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Whatever we masticate is bhakshyam, and then bhojyam is the liquid, paisam like lehyam, paisam or honey, chokshyam like you say, that which is sucked, like we suck using a straw or sugar cane juice. So all of them are digested by the internal fire, which is the Jataragni or Vaishwanara. As Triveni ji mentioned, Shastras mention about external Agni, Bahyagni and Antaragni. Antaragni is the Vaishwanara. That is what it is being talked about. Next question. So 3 Purushas which I have briefly covered, again well covered today. Name the 3 Purushas.
The
which are
Kshara
mentioned in this.
Purusha or the Anatma, the Akshara Purusha, which is Maya, and Uttama Purusha, which is Brahman.
Yeah, the manifested Anatma is the Kshara Purusha, that which is perceptible, unmanifested one which is the Bijam or the Maya, which is the Akshara Purusha, and Uttama Purusha that you have already mentioned previously, that is the Chaitanya Tattvam, the consciousness behind these 2 Purushas. Next question. Okay, so match the following: Mudha, some Mudha, you covered this already.
Mudha is deluded.
Yeah.
Sammudha is fully deluded.
Yeah.
Asammudha is wise.
So super deluded is Sammudha. Asammudha is the wise. Okay. In the previous question, there was Akshara Purusha Kutastaha is mentioned in this particular chapter, giving reference to Akshara Purusha or Maya. That has a different meaning when you refer to that in the previous chapters, like chapter 9 and 12, I think. There it refers to the Uttama Purusha. Thank you, Dr. Anupama, for the answers, and thanks to Dr. Ravi Shankar for framing these wonderful questions. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Srimati Radha, for explaining the poem or Divine Stuti, Srimati Triveni for your excellent presentation, Dr. Divakar for the educative teaching quiz. Hearty thanks to Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir for giving us the key aspects. Most importantly, thank you, friends, for your active participation. Friends, remember to log in on Monday, 9th June 2023 at 6:45 p.m. sharp for the 64th session of DISHA, covering Daivi Sampat, Asuri Sampat, and importance of Shastra from verses 1 to 24 of Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. Dhanyavada and Shubharatri. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna.